Thank you so much, everyone, for coming to our second in our series called Faithful Voices in a Critical Hour. Today's series is called A Study from Sacred Text to Civic Values. Thank you so much to all of our panelists who have taken time out to join us today. I'll be presenting them shortly and then putting their bios in the chat. So, again, thank you so much for being here. My name is Rhonda Lidner. I am the statewide interfaith organizer for the Wisconsin Interfaith Voter Engagement Campaign. And those of us in the know, we call it WIVIC. A little introduction to WIVIC for a couple of you who may not be familiar with our organization. WIVIC works to engage the interfaith community in the democratic process. This nonpartisan work can deepen understanding and strengthen ties among different faith communities, as we are seeing that happening today, increase engagement in the electoral process, and result in greater awareness of the positive role faith communities can play in the public square. Again, we're seeing that happen just on this Zoom alone. Widespread voter engagement is needed to ensure that elected leaders will pay attention to the needs of all of their constituents, especially those who are least often listened to and who have the most at stake. So thank you so much for all the work you do, whether it's with WIVIC or other nonpartisan organizations, to help increase voter engagement through not just during elections, but throughout the entire year. Here at WIVIC, we have 3 areas of voter engagement. The first one we aptly call voter engagement, where we work with vulnerable populations. Sometimes these populations are called low propensity, but we like to say high opportunity voters. These could be student voters, voters who are living in uncertain circumstances, voters who are living with a disability, any voter who might have a little bit more difficulty accessing voting the way others may find it much more easily, may find that avenue more easily. We help congregations reach out to their own vulnerable populations, those who might be living in long-term care, those who are homebound, anything we can do to organize congregations to feel a part of the democratic process. We also engage in opportunities of voter education, such as this one, online meetings or webinars, speaker engagements. We have a newsletter that comes out once a week, almost every Tuesday. I am the editor and I rely on Jill and Matt to help me. But as many of you have heard, I'm a former English teacher. Deadlines are very important to me. So that newsletter goes out by Tuesday afternoon, almost every week. We also work with students, whether they are in middle school, to help them engage in promoting democracy. High schools, we help to register, especially those who are seniors in high school. And we also work in universities, especially in the faith communities. And one of these days, we're going to make good on the idea that we work with summer camps. Those summer camps that maybe on a rainy day could use a little bit of help. So one of these days, we're going to get there. And most importantly, or just as importantly, we work with voter protection. We work in the field of grassroots advocacy to strengthen our democracy. We work to promote fair maps and work to challenge the overreach of different branches of government. We rely heavily on helping people to access, especially here in Wisconsin, the My Vote website, which encourages absentee ballots, the use of ballot boxes, and voting early. And as many of you know, and some of you may have participated in, we are a founding member of the Poll Chaplain Program here in Wisconsin, along with the Wisconsin Council of Churches, where we recruit, train, and organize clergy to serve on election days. Our goal is 100 clergy throughout the state. In 2024, we reached over 70 clergy throughout the state. So we're very proud of that program. And thank you to some of you who actually served in that program. So I appreciate all of the help, all of the volunteer engagement that makes WIVIC happen. We could not do this without you all. I want to thank, of course, our communication coordinator, Jill Olson, who came on at the beginning of the year and has really elevated WIVIC's profile. So thanks so much, Jill. And Jill will be navigating most of this webinar. I appreciate all the behind the scenes work you do. And I'm going to pass it to our executive director, Matt Kinzera, to tell us a little bit about Wisconsin Faith Voices for Justice.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Matt Kinzero, Executive Director of Wisconsin Faith Voices for Justice. And first and foremost, I'm so excited because our founder and previous Executive Director Rabbi Bonnie Margulis, is one of our presenters today. And as soon as I heard she was going to be a part of this, I was just over the moon. So I get to every single day walk on in the incredible foundation of leadership that Rabbi Bonnie put together for Wisconsin Faith Voices for Justice. So honored to be on the same Zoom call as you, Bonnie. And real quickly, because I want to get to our presenters, all of us are on a lot of webinars throughout our given weeks. And when I saw this one and I saw the presenter lineup for this one, I was a little extra excited. So I'm going to keep my part really brief. Wisconsin Faith Voices for Justice, we connect across faith communities and draw on the collective wisdom, courage, and strength of our various faith traditions. We empower communities and individuals to work for the common good and a life of dignity for everyone. And we advocate for change so that all individuals and families can thrive socially, prosper economically, and participate fully in civil society. And I think such a time as this, there's no greater strength that we see our people of faith than when there's times of need and crisis like we're in right now. And so I'm so thankful for all of you on this call, all of you who are coming in to listen, and also everybody who's in our network for doing this work that in so many ways, it feels like our lives depend on it this year, and the life of our society and the life of our democracy. And so I'm so thankful for Rhonda and Jill for their incredible work with Civic, which is really a foundational piece of everything that we do. So with that said, I'll hand it back over to Rhonda and anxiously await our incredible presenters today.
Okay, thanks so much. So yes, as Matt said, we have some incredible presenters today. I'm going to introduce all of them in one moment, and then we will begin the panel. In addition to my very brief introduction of each of the panelists, there will be a bio that is put into the chat. So first of all, our panelists in alphabetical order. First is Glen Allgaier from the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Glen has a PhD in electrical engineering from 1971 and presently serves as patriarch for 7 congregations here in Milwaukee. Next is Rabbi Bonnie Margulis. Again, as Matt said, Rabbi Bonnie is the founder and former executive director of Wisconsin and is currently the director of Hillel and Jewish Life at Trinity College in Hartford, Connecticut. Third, we have Reverend J.C. Mitchell. Reverend J.C. Mitchell is an ordained minister, disability advocate, and program coordinator for the Interfaith Conference of Greater Milwaukee. He is a subject matter resource for the Milwaukee area on topics ranging from inter-congregational security to pastoral ethics. Next, we have Fawzia Qureshi. Fawzia serves as the executive director of the Wisconsin Muslim Civic Alliance and Wisconsin Muslim Civic Foundation. In this role, she leads statewide civic engagement, policy advocacy, leadership development, and cultural programming to amplify Muslim voices across Wisconsin. And last but certainly not least, as we were going in alphabetical order, is Abbas Shakir. Abbas Shakir is a Bahá'í. He lived in South Africa for over 43 years. He holds a PhD in water engineering, and he serves now with a focus on spiritual, moral, and intellectual development of the children, junior youth, and adults across the population groups. And wow, I feel like I am in awe of those bios, and those are just 2 sentences of each bio. So thank you so much to this incredibly esteemed group of panelists. I am so honored to present this panel and to have an opportunity to be in conversation with such wonderful people who have made social justice their livelihoods and the focus of their work both in Milwaukee and as it looks like worldwide. So first we have some questions. And our first 2 questions are pretty broad, again, focusing on how our civic texts lead us to how our sacred texts lead us to civic values. So the first 2 questions, each panelist has been told of ahead of time. Some have prepared presentations and some are just going to chat with us. So thank you so much. The questions are, How does your faith inspire civic engagement? And what specific text or texts inspire you to civic engagement? So that is our first question. We'll try to thank you, Jill, for putting that in the chat. And we'll start again with Glen Allgaier from the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Glen, thank you so much.
Thank you for the opportunity. How does your faith inspire civic engagement? My initial reaction to the question was that it related to being involved with politics, social justice, protests, and things of that nature. But I found a broader definition to be, and I'm going to use a quotation here, it refers to ways individuals actively involve themselves in the public life of their community, society, and democratic system beyond their private or work lives. The fundamental culture of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints is one of service, laying the foundation for civic engagement. Three religious texts provide the framework for a service mentality and a willingness to give of my time or talents to the benefit of others. These include the Bible, the Book of Mormon, and the Doctrine and Covenants. We join with other Christian faiths in believing the Bible to be the Word of God, and J.C. Mitchell will talk more about that, I'm sure. Whereas the Bible provides a history of God's people in the Mediterranean area, the Book of Mormon provides a complementary history of an ancient, God-fearing people on the American continent. They also had prophets who prophesied of the coming of Jesus Christ. The Doctrine and Covenants is a collection of revelations to the prophet Joseph Smith and prophets who have succeeded him. One unique characteristic of our church culture is the manner in which all members, including teenagers, share in ministering to the needs of others. Our pastor, whom we refer to as a bishop, typically serves for a period of 4 to 5 years. He's selected from the congregation, and during this time continues in his daily occupation, which could be anything from electrician to business owner. So where does he find the time to be a pastor while working to support his family? Members of the congregation are organized to share the load as we are assigned to visit each other on a regular basis, providing fellowship and being aware of their needs. One specific text that defines that is the Doctrine and Covenants, which states, quote, visit the house of each member, exhorting them to pray vocally and in secret, and in all family duties, and be with and strengthen them. The importance of serving one another is also taught in the Book of Mormon, where the prophet Benjamin taught, inasmuch as ye are in the service of your fellow beings, you are also in the service of your God. Another prophet in the Book of Mormon taught, after ye shall obtain riches, you will seek them for the intent to do good, to clothe the naked, and to feed the hungry and administer relief to the sick and the afflicted. As a teenager, I was assigned to accompany an older brother of the congregation to make a monthly visit to 3 to 5 families. I continue that practice today, including visits to members who no longer attend church. They are all children of God. That culture, reinforced by the scriptures, provided a service mentality and a willingness to give of my time and talents to benefit others. So how does this service mentality extend beyond the culture of our faith tradition? Our church leaders encourage us to also be involved in the community. Another unique characteristic of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints is our understanding of Christ's admonition to preach the gospel throughout the world, as taught in the Bible. Upon graduation, although not required, young men are expected to spend 2 years teaching others of Jesus Christ, funded by the family, not the church. In my case, I saved as much as I could, and my family provided the balance of funds. I was called to serve in France. Knocking on doors taught me to look beyond my own needs to those of others. Our children, including 5 of our daughters, have served in Ecuador, Hong Kong, Switzerland, Japan, Missouri, England, Brazil, and Russia. There are currently 80,000 young adults and over 30,000 seniors currently serving in that capacity throughout the world.
Thanks so much, Glenn.
Oh, wait. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I disorganized my notes, which I was reading from. So how does this service mentality help in the faith in our community? So I've been blessed with many opportunities, and I share them with no sense of pride or boasting, but perhaps they'll spark ideas in some of those attending this discussion. I've coached youth soccer teams. I've been a scoutmaster. I've served as the leader of our homeowner association for our subdivision, and I've had the opportunity to mentor high school students. In addition, retirement has provided me the time to be even more actively involved in civic engagement. I served on the school board in our community for 15 years and continue to attend school board meetings and meet with individual school board members when there are topics of concern to me. 4 years ago, I was asked to help establish a program for seniors to come into the elementary schools and help individual students struggling with reading or math. Last year, over 40 volunteers helped almost 200 students. In addition to the encouragement to be actively involved in serving our communities, additional scriptures provide the motivation for political involvement. The Doctrine and Covenants that I referenced earlier contains the following revelation from God. For this purpose have I established the Constitution of the United States by the hands of wise men whom I raised up unto this very purpose. This scripture gives us confidence in the organization of our national government and the importance of respecting and supporting the principles defined in our founding document. They are reinforced on a regular basis by our church leaders who encourage us to also be actively involved in elections. So I have done that by keeping ahead of current issues and also being involved in grassroots campaigns for candidates that I support by doing the usual knocking on doors, making phone calls, writing letters to the editor, yard signs, putting a flyer in my neighbor's newspaper box, and contributing to campaigns. I am grateful for the foundation of service I received within my church culture. I feel I've been greatly blessed by my civic engagement as I've learned from and also gained an appreciation for the many people who are similarly engaged, as we'll hear later today. Now I'm done.
Right. Thanks so much, Glenn. I really appreciate that. As a former scout leader and former leader of her HOA, I know that sometimes it's the little things that count, and sometimes being a scout leader and a leader of an HOA is not so little. So, Glenn, thank you so much for sharing your experiences with your sacred texts. Next, I'd like to ask Rabbi Bani Margulis to share her presentation on Judaism and civic engagement. Bonnie, it's so great to have you join us today. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Rhonda, and good afternoon, everybody. It's afternoon where I am. It's great to see you all again and to be with you. So I'm going to share some Jewish texts. We always start with Torah, and actually I'm going to start with a piece from the Talmud commenting on something in Torah. So Jill, if you'll get to the first set of texts. Yeah, thank you. So there's a text in Exodus chapter 35. So God is talking to Moses about all of the details of setting up the Mishkan, the sanctuary in the desert, and who's going to do what. And God appoints Bezalel, son of Uri, to be in charge of this building project. And God says, because Bezalel has skills and talent and knows what he's doing. And Moses brings Bezalel before the people and introduces him to the people. So this text is then commented upon in the Talmud, so this text from 2,000 years ago, in explaining why Moses goes to the trouble of introducing Bezalel before putting him to work. Rabbi Yitzhak says, you can only appoint a leader over the community if you first consult with the community and they agree to the appointment. So, and then there's this quote from Exodus. Moses said to the children of Israel, see, God has called by name Bezalel, son of Uri, son of Hur, of the tribe of Judah. And then Rabbi Yitzhak imagines this dialogue between God and Moses. So God asks Moses, is Bezalel suitable? Moses said, if it's good for you, it's good for me. And God says, no, but still go and ask Israel, ask all of the Israelites their opinion. So Moses goes to Israel and says, is Bezalel suitable in your eyes? So Rabbi Yitzhak is saying it's not just that Moses was introducing Bezalel, but was actually asking for the consent of the community before basically before confirming this nomination of Bezalel. And so then we have to ask, well, what are the attributes of leadership? And the Torah tells us very explicitly what makes somebody a good leader. So Moses's father-in-law, Jethro, comes to Moses and sees that Moses is adjudicating disputes among the Israelites from morning till night. He sits from morning till night, and all the Israelites gather around him, and it takes forever, and people don't always get heard, and it's a little crazy making. And Jethro says, you're nuts, stop doing this, appoint other people to help you. But he doesn't just say randomly appoint people. He says, who should you appoint? People who are capable, who fear God, and who are trustworthy, who spurn ill-gotten gain. So he specifically says people who are not going to take bribes to get the answer that they want from whatever their dispute is. And then Deuteronomy, Moses is talking to all of the Israelites before he dies and before they enter the land. And he says, when you enter the land, one of the first things you're going to do is choose leaders. How do you choose your leaders? It's not just who's the oldest or who's the richest or who's the most powerful, but it's those who are wise, who are discerning, and who are experienced. And the Hebrew also could be translated as renowned, people who are known to you. And then other places where our text talks about leadership and gives us hints and clues about what makes somebody a good leader. Jill, if you can advance to the next slide, please. Thank you. So as you can see, I've been talking about this for a really long time. This is from a sermon I gave a couple of years ago at a congregation where I was working. And there's all different ways of looking at our texts and discerning what it teaches us about what makes somebody a good leader. So time and again, we see that good leaders speak truth to power. Abraham and Moses both argue with God. The prophet Samuel is not afraid to rebuke King Saul, nor is Nathan the court prophet who owes his position to King David, but yet he's not afraid to tell King David when King David has sinned. And in every case, whether it's a king or whether it's God itself, the response is one of humility, acknowledgement of wrong, and redress. Even God admits that God made a rash or ill-considered decision and is able to take advice and to change the decision. So when we go to our voting booths, that's what we want to look for. We want to look for leaders who have a strong sense of responsibility, who understand the sacrifice that the job entails, who are wise and discerning, who have experience and integrity, who cannot be corrupted. And we look for those who govern with compassion and empathy, who listen and who can learn and who can grow in the job and admit when they are wrong. Jill, if you can advance, please. So how do we know that it's important for us as Jews to vote? Well, we're told time and time again by our our leaders, our rabbis, our sages, that voting and taking part in the democratic process and being engaged in the community wherever we live around the world is a mitzvah, is something that is commanded and is of great importance. So we are told this story of Rabbi Avram Karelitz, who was born in Russia, but then moved to Israel. He's known as the Chazon Ish, a man of vision. That was an epithet that was given to him. And a man comes to him and says, I don't have enough shekels to pay my taxes, and so I'm not going to be allowed to vote in an upcoming election, and I don't know what to do about this. So the Chazon Ish tells him, so you should know that tefillin are very, very important sacred objects that traditional Jews use in prayer. And very often they are passed down from father to son. They're very expensive and they're very precious, holy objects. But the Chazon Ish says to this man, you should sell your tefillin in order to raise the money to pay your taxes so that you can go vote. Because tefillin, you can borrow your tefillin from somebody else, but the right to vote you cannot get from somebody else. Rabbi Moshe Feinstein, who was a very respected halachic, or that is a legal, Jewish legal authority, was asked for his opinion. He was asked to write a letter to the Jewish community about the importance and the sacredness of voting. And so he wrote in this letter, on reaching the shores of the United States, Jews found a safe haven. The rights guaranteed by the United States Constitution and Bill of Rights have allowed us the freedom to practice our religion without interference and to live in this republic in safety. A fundamental principle of Judaism is hakarat hatov, recognizing benefits afforded us and giving expression to our appreciation. Therefore, it is incumbent upon each Jewish citizen to participate in the democratic system which safeguards the freedoms we enjoy. The most fundamental responsibility incumbent on each individual is to register and to vote. Therefore, I urge all members of the Jewish community to fulfill their obligations by registering as soon as possible and by voting. By this, we can express our appreciation and contribute to the continued security of our community. And as Jews, it's important for us to participate in the democratic process and to be part of the community wherever we live, whether it's in Israel or in the diaspora all around the world, and particularly in the United States, which is one of the few countries that not only welcomed us, but guaranteed us the rights of citizenship, including the right to vote. We need to exercise that right. Jill, the next slide. So it's incumbent upon us as Jews to promote the general welfare, peace, and prosperity. And when Deuteronomy says you shall not hide yourself, the commentators from the 11th century French authority, Rashi, all the way through to Rabbi Jonah Pesner today, all interpret this to mean that it's important and vital for us to be part of the society where we live. So Rashi says, you shall not hide yourself means you shall not cover your eyes pretending not to see. That is, you shouldn't pretend that you don't see the injustice around you and pretend that it's not your responsibility to take part in addressing it. The Talmud from, again, 2,000 years ago says, when the community is in trouble, a person should not say, I will go into my house and eat and drink and be at peace with myself. So you can't shut yourself up in your house and pretend that everything is okay just because you have food and drink. If things aren't okay in the world where you live, you have to take part in making the world a better place. Rabbi Abraham Joshua Heschel, who marched with Dr. King across the Edmund Pettus Bridge in the march from Selma to Montgomery, said the opposite of good is not evil, the opposite of good is indifference. In a free society, some are guilty, but all are responsible. Rabbi Jonah Pesner runs today the Religious Action Center of Reform Judaism, which is the advocacy branch of the Reform movement, the largest movement of Judaism in the United States. The Religious Action Center is based in Washington, D.C., and he says, as engaged citizens, each of us has a responsibility to not only take part in our democracy, but to involve others in the process as well. So it's not enough for each of us individually to go vote, but we have to also encourage our friends, our family, our communities, our congregations, everybody that we possibly can reach out to take part in the democratic process as well. And Jeremiah, 2,500 years ago, told Jews who were being taken off to exile in Babylonia, seek the peace and prosperity of the city to which I have carried you into exile. Pray to the Lord for it, because if it prospers, you too will prosper. So we have to make sure that wherever we live is a place of safety, of democracy, of civic engagement, because what it provides safety for Jews provides safety for everybody where we live, and vice versa. So these are just a handful of the many, many Jewish texts and Jewish resources around the importance of democracy and civic engagement. So I've included some URLs to different places where you can go to get a deeper dive if you're interested in learning more about Judaism and civic engagement, and particularly the Center for Reform Judaism Every Voice, Every Vote campaign, which works to ensure that every Jew is engaged in our democratic process. So thank you all so much for listening to my presentation, and thank you to Rhonda for inviting me to be here today.
Thank you, Rabbi Bani. And I see that you referenced the organization A More Perfect Union. Civic is partners with Tikkun Ha'ir, a Jewish social justice organization, and A More Perfect Union has been very generous in some grants for us so that we can pursue the work of interfaith civic engagement. So I'm glad that you were able to prop them up as well. So thank you so much. Next, we have Reverend J.C. Mitchell, who not only is here today, but has also been a member of the clergy cohort for Faith 250, an interfaith perspective of America's founding democracy texts. So, JC, please go ahead.
Yes, hi. I'm also the program coordinator at the Interfaith Conference of Greater Milwaukee. I'm an associate at Metropolitan Missionary Baptist Church, which is an American and General Baptist church. And my wife is the executive minister for the American Baptist churches for the state. So I'm more the stay-at-home parent. So that's why I'm at home right now. And as Baptists and Free Church, which include like the United Church of Christ, Disciples of Christ, most non-denominational churches and such, our governments are set up in such a way, especially in the United States, that models democracy, because we don't appoint, unlike a Methodist or a Roman Catholic, we are called, and calling really means that there is a vote on the pastor, and some even vote every year. I mean, that's pretty rare. It's usually non-denominational, but it's usually a vote to call or whatever. And most good pastors would only take it if it's like 3/4 or above. Anyways, so it's just how we're engaged in general already, is that we're based around this idea of democracy and such, which is also down because it also means that people start churches based on their own personal belief systems. So there's a lot of small, churches that aren't as engaged. But we are, as Christians, called to be out of the worldly society, but at the same time to treat everyone equally, because we don't know, and to share that at the same time. So that's the word church, ecclesia, you might hear, is an old Greek word that really means like called out of, for legal reasons. So that we really feel like we're called out of society, but we don't want to leave society behind, because it's not just about personal salvation. It's about bringing everyone with us. And it really isn't about us believing something specifically. And so I really was concentrating on 4 texts that really are pivotal to why we're engaged and how we're engaged in civic life. And I'm going to start with one of the Gospels, Matthew 25. And I'm just going to skip towards the end where Jesus is talking to some people who are asking questions, and they're like a little confused because they're like, well, when did you not have clothes, and when you were naked and we didn't take care of you? And he answers, truly I tell you, just as you did not do it to one of the least of these, you did not do it to me. And these will go away into eternal punishment, but the righteous into eternal life. And so a lot of the gospel is set up in such a way where the downtrodden are who are being held up. And so we are called to do that work continually. And I'll also just emphasize too that this is a theme throughout the Hebrew Bible that we inherit as well. And we, there's tremendously more because it's longer. And but I was concentrating on the Greek sacred texts. One of the other gospel ones that I find interesting that reminds us of being civic acting is Luke's version of the Acts of the Apostles. So in Acts 2, verse 42, it writes that they devoted themselves to the apostles' teaching and fellowship and breaking bread and prayer. Awe came upon everyone because many wonders and signs were being done by the apostles. All who believed were together and had all things in common. They would sell their possessions and goods and distribute their proceeds to all as any had need. And I have to say that definitely triggers like some thought and such, because a lot of Christianity definitely has much more classism than you would think Acts. But to even go to an earlier, this is one that I really, I'll end with another one you probably know, but is a book that a lot of Christians don't even refer to often. It's actually one of the epistles by Paul. And so it's one of our earlier writings. All the Gospels come later, as maybe as early as the 70s. But it's almost as turn of the first century. Most of Paul's writings are from like the 50s, maybe even the late 40s sometimes. And there's a letter to Philemon, which is a 1-chapter letter. And it really demonstrates how the early church, even before we were Christians, really demonstrating a way of being in society. For in that society, they had people who owned other people. They had slaves. And this letter is a letter that was sent by Paul to Philemon, along with the slave returning to his master. And the name of the slave is Onesimus, which is a play on words that means useful. Either it's because he was a useful slave, or this may be his new Christian name. It's not 100% clear. But he goes back, and the way the letter is written, Paul is also very he's great, because it's written to lots of people, knowing it'll be read, everywhere. And it basically says, you believe in the resurrected Christ now, so does Onesimus, and so basically you need to bring him back as an equal. And Paul even says, if there is anything, when I visit, I'll pay you back, which also demonstrates he's going to show up. And so it's not like strong arming him, like you need to do this. It's saying that this is what we believe, and so thus you should act this way. What's also very interesting about it too is you're thinking, well, it actually still exists, and it's literally just a letter of introduction. It isn't it is very theological, and we have it. So it's pretty much understood that we believe Onesimus went back, because if he was a slave on the run, he definitely would have destroyed something that would show him to be a slave. And so the only reason really to have it is, that he went back. Now, how he was exactly treated is, not really known. But this book, I think, is essential in demonstrating our need since the early church, and especially also the Acts one, about us being this community that outside the regular community and trying to grow that and doing that with equality and such. Another one that I just, resonate is James. He was a brother of someone very famous. He wrote that what good is it, my brothers and sisters, if you say you have faith but do not have works? Can faith save you? If a brother or sister is naked and lacks daily food, and one of you says to them, go in peace, keep warm, and eat your fill, and yet you do not supply their bodily needs, what is the good of that? So faith by itself is, if it has no works, is dead. And this is really essential too. Like one of the reasons the church we're at, feeds people twice a week, and we're constantly helping each other out, but also helping others, because we believe we were told by our to be perfect like the Heavenly Father is perfect, raining on the righteous and unrighteous, and putting some of the righteous and unrighteous equally. And so that's what we're called for. And so there's tons of scriptures from the Hebrew to the Greek scriptures that really show that we need to engage life for people, especially those who need, who are downtrodden or don't have that voice. And then we have, especially American Christianity, have set ourselves up to model that type of democracy as well. So.
Thanks so much, JC, and thanks for lifting up that notion that faith alone is not enough. And in many ways, that is the string that brings us all together, both at Wisconsin Faith Voices for Justice, WIVIC, and of course, this webinar. So thanks so much, JC. Looking forward to seeing you soon at Faith 250. Speaking of Faith 250, another friend and lay leader cohort in Faith 250 is Fazia Qureshi. So Fazia, thanks for the support of Faith 250 and for bringing your perspectives of Islam to our webinar today. You're on mute, Fazia.
Can you hear me now? Yeah, okay. I just wanted to kind of go through what our organization does. I know that Rhonda already, first, thank you so much for being here today. I really appreciate everybody's time and interest in this, such a great panel. And thank you to the panelists as well for speaking on all of the topics that we've already heard about. I think it's been really eye-opening and enlightening to hear about the different faiths. So thank you to the panelists, and thank you to Rhonda for really organizing everything and all of that. So just to go into it again, the executive director for the Wisconsin Muslim Civic Alliance and the Wisconsin Muslim Civic Foundation. And really, we want to empower and amplify the voices of the Wisconsin Muslim community through civic engagement, research, advocacy, and striving to foster a more inclusive and equitable society for all Wisconsinites, not just the Muslim community, but all of our allies, and most of who are even in the groups that we're involved in Faith 250 and WIVIC and everyone else. So I really appreciate just being able to partner with everyone as well. Our vision is to a vision of Wisconsin where the Muslim community is fully integrated, actively engaged, positively contributing to the school's social, economic, political fabric. Through education, collaboration, advocacy, we aim to create a future where community members have a choice and equal opportunities for success. There we go. So I know our first question was, how does our faith inspire civic engagement? And I've used a little bit of the Arabic words for this. So hidma means service. And service is really not optional. It is an act of worship. Every voter registered, every policy change is an offering. It's another act of worship that we as Muslims really do need to stay engaged and stay involved in. We're also have a stewardship. We want to make sure that we have that trust. We're trustees of, obviously living in America, we want to make the trustees of this democracy. Our faith calls us to protect it, and for those who come after us. And I'm just doing it very briefly because I know that we have other speakers as well, and we want to make sure that we get to everybody and have time for everyone to speak about it. Additionally, civic engagement, so adl means justice, and we believe in civic engagement is how we pursue justice in the public square, not just in our mosques, not just in our own communities, but along with being just in everything we do. One of the sacred texts that I wanted to go through first was the Islamic call to justice and civic duty. It says in Quran, it says, "O you who believe, stand up as witnesses for God in all fairness, and do not let the hatred of a people deviate you from justice. Be just. This is the closest to piety. And beware of God. Surely God is aware of all you do." Explanation, I'd say the verse from the Quran underscores the importance of upholding justice, fairness, even challenging circumstances. So it emphasizes that true piety is closely linked to justice, regardless of personal feelings or bias. It also, and the next text also goes into being just. So one of the things that we really want to make sure that we always are doing is, again, staying true and being steadfast in justice. The next ayah or verse that I'm actually talking about from the Quran is be steadfast in upholding justice as witnesses for God, even if it is against yourselves, your parents, or close relatives. So you always want to be just, even if it's very difficult to be just. And we know sometimes that it is difficult, but being just is what is mandatory. So we require courage. Obviously requires courage, especially when it's inconvenient. And also in the Quran, it says, let there be among you a group calling to good, enjoining what is right and forbidding what is wrong. So obviously civic advocacy is the call to good, and that can be in our city halls, state houses, polling places, etc. We always want to make sure that we are enjoining good and enjoining what is right and forbidding what is evil and wrong. One of the sayings or hadith is from a prophet, peace be upon him. Whoever among you sees something wrong, let him change it with his hand, if not with his tongue, if not with his heart. So I would say that was like the 3 levels of civic action. You can do organizing, advocacy, and witnessing. So obviously we have a lot of people on the call today that are doing a lot of that action organizing, which is what I'd say the top in terms of being, and if you see something wrong, change it by doing your organizing, being more civically engaged. Obviously, we can do advocacy through your tongue, through like social media, through protests, through whatever actions those are going to be. And then obviously, the lowest of those is doing it with your heart, saying that I don't think this is a good thing, this is something that's wrong, and you're witnessing and you know that it is wrong and you say it within your heart. So civic duty, voting is a moral and civic responsibility. Many faith traditions emphasize the importance of contributing to the common good and advocating for justice, which aligns with the act of voting. And we've heard that through many of the texts that we've heard from the various panelists today. So I really appreciate what they also mentioned. By voting or being more civically engaged, members of faith communities fulfill their civic duty and to demonstrate their commitment to the broader society. And an example would be voting in local elections to support school board members who will improve education standards aligned with the moral duty to support quality education for all children. I think I have another slide here. Another couple of case studies are, for example, in New York City, a local zoning board initially blocked the construction of a mosque in Staten Island. And after community advocacy and legal challenges, the decision was overturned, highlighting the impact of local policies on religious practice. Another example would be California state legislation on workplace religious accommodations, such as time off for religious observances and or the wearing of religious attire, ensures that employees can observe their faith practices without facing discriminations or job loss. And we also saw that with the travel ban, significantly impacted our Muslim communities, leading to protests, legal challenges, and increased awareness about the influences of federal immigration policies on faith communities. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Thanks, Fazia. Particularly struck by the idea of staying true to ourselves, staying steadfast. As Matt said, these are very difficult times, and so many people, as I've said in Faith 250, are choosing to stay only in their heart, and how much harder it is to showcase our actions. So thank you so much, especially on a local level. There's so much going on, and in these elections, especially at local levels, they truly matter. So thanks so much, Fazia. And of course, last but not least, as Abbas Shakir. Abbas, I will hand it over to you. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. It's really my pleasure to be here. And thank you to the organizing team for this great opportunity to share these beautiful views, as I've been hearing from my colleagues. It's amazing how much we have common, in what we are doing and what we are believing. And I see that as a strength, and I see that, as a place where we can start our common endeavor to serve our society and the world, quite frankly. It's very exciting to be part of this panel. Thank you, everybody. I just hope that the approach I've taken, to address the 2 questions is acceptable. Let me try that and see what you think of it. In thinking about engaging in our civil responsibilities and values, a number of questions crossed my mind, which I thought of exploring with you and see what you think of it. It is true that we participate in elections and it's our duty to do so. It is true that we participate in policy formulations, whether directly or indirectly. We abide by the law of the land and, whatever conventions and agreement that the society prescribed to us. And we, try to obey all of them. The question I'm asking myself, and I'm not, necessarily referring to America in isolation, the whole world. And I'm picturing 7 billion of us, following these, values and responsibilities. And when I look around myself, I ask the question, what is the ultimate purpose behind all of this? And I don't know whether it would be true to say that at the end of the day, what we want to see is happiness for everybody. What we want to see is a society which is just, a society which maintains order, a society which is run based on law and order, a society which provides prosperity, not only material and physical prosperity, but also spiritual prosperity, a society which offers safety and security, and all of these attributes that we are after. And again, I would invite us not only to look at America, but also the whole world. And when I look around us, I don't know what your take is. The first question which crosses my mind is that, are we achieving this? Are we achieving this vision in totality? Is this vision being achieved for just one segment of the society? How widespread, these beautiful attributes and values are being practiced? And all of these questions which cross my mind, I don't know whether you agree with me. A lot of good has been done, even listening to our panelists, a lot of good has been done. But I think the way I see it, there is a lot more to be done, in terms of this vision that all of us are after. And when I think about what is missing, despite of all the, good deeds that we are all involved in. And that question brought me closer to the two questions that we are examining together. And that is, what is the role of God in all of this? He has a purpose, for creating us. And how close, these values are and what we are practicing to that purpose. And in the Baha'i writings, I came across a quotation from Baha'u'llah, the prophet founder of the Baha'i faith, that humanity, us, all of us, we have been created noble. And this nobility, if I'm not mistaken, is referring to our attributes and values that God has given us. This nobility is referring to the capacities, that he has given us. This nobility is referring to the energies that we are supposed to channel towards the betterment of the society. And the question I ask myself is that our societies around the world, are we actually providing the means for this nobility to flourish? Are we actually, providing a society in which our children, our junior youth, our adults, everybody, regardless of our background, regardless of, what nationality, what gender, what race we come from, are we, creating a society which is going to help us to flourish, this nobility in all of us? And that's where I found the commonality and perhaps where the purpose of God for our creation comes in. Then I went back to the Baha'i writings and I came across, one of the writings of Baha'u'llah, which I think is addressing this issue, and allow me to screen share that and go through it with you and see what you think of the concept which is introduced here. If I can share the screen, is it visible, colleagues? All right, excellent. The Baha'u'llah says, the purpose for which mortal men have from utter nothingness stepped into the realm of being is that they may work for the betterment of the world and live together in concord and harmony. If I could just, pause a few minutes, what intrigued me, there are a number of words that I have highlighted. First, he talks about the betterment. I ask myself, what is the meaning of this betterment? Is it talking about prosperity? Is it physical? Is it material? What is it? And perhaps this is one thing that we need to explore together. What I found intriguing is that he's talking about the world. And, looking at this, he's not talking about, one segment of the society, one nation, or one race group. The way I understand this, he is talking about the entire world, the earth being one country and mankind its citizen. That's the way I understand this, that in our approach, in our, engagement with our civil society, we should be thinking about all of us as one humankind. And be driven by the concept of the unity of mankind. Which leads me to the second part of the quotation where he talks about living together in concord and harmony. Again, all of these things suggest to me that perhaps what we need to do in our fulfillment of civil engagement and civil responsibilities and values, we should take into account these principles of unity of mankind. And, many of us, talked about justice, and I'm asking myself, can we truly have justice without the unity and the oneness of mankind? And I think the answer, I don't know what you think of it, I don't think that's possible. Therefore, this entire seeing humanity as one seems to be the guiding principle in our approach to our civic duties. Thinking about this, I asked myself, how do we achieve this? And I'm sure many of my colleagues listening to our presentations, we share this, common vision together. That actually took me to another slide, which I would like to share. And I came across that. I don't know whether I can go to the next one. Is it visible? I think, yeah. In one of the writings of our international body, which we call the Universal Laws of Justice, I came across, a contribution towards this definition. How do we achieve this? And I understood that the starting point would be the grassroots, will be our communities, where they say it means learning how to raise up vibrant, outward-looking communities. It means those communities learning how to bring about the spiritual and material progress. It means learning how to contribute to the discourses that influence the direction of that progress, and awakening the energies latent in the human soul and channeling them towards the betterment of the society. Which took me to the next question, all right? If you're talking about creating those vibrant communities. In communities, we have individuals, and as we all know, our inner beings affect the communities and the greater society, and the society and the communities affect us as well. Where is the starting point? What would be my role as an individual? How do I engage? And then I found this quotation from the writings of Baha'u'llah, where he says, this betterment that we talked about of the world can be accomplished through pure and goodly deeds and through commendable and seemly conduct. The way I understood this, as if there are two components involved when it comes to the individual. My understanding is that the same principle applies to our community as well as the institutions. And hopefully we'll have time to engage with that. But at the level of individual, what I understood of this is that I need to do two things, in terms of my responsibilities to the society. One is to adopt the model of pure and goodly deeds, and also commendable and seemly conduct. And I thought, just imagine a world, 7 billion of us practicing this principle, regardless of our background, and joining hands together and following our own faith, whatever, system of belief that we have, to implement this together and rising above all the limitations through our goodly deeds and commendable and seemly conduct. Then I thought, okay, what does this mean as an individual? How can I contribute? The questions talk about what actually inspires me as an individual to engage with the civic values and all of that. I found out again, in the writings of the faith, that they highlight two things. One is that I need to develop my own inherent potentialities, which are related, again, to the purpose of our being on this, on this earth. And it's amazing, and I don't know how you feel about that, when we actually examine the spiritual principles of all the religions. At the end of the day, it's the way I understand this, it is about knowing the Almighty, our Creator. It is about, understanding, learning and understanding His teachings. It is about aligning our way of life to His teachings. And when we practice all of this as a whole, surely, you can imagine what kind of society we are going to have. Therefore, I found out that one of my major responsibilities would be to flourish those potentialities that God has given us. And, I was so excited to hear from all of you, my co-panelists, that we need to put this into practice. In isolation, I cannot just be developing those potentials. They are actually interconnected. I won't be able to grow those potentials without being, service to mankind. And I'm conscious of the time. Lastly, the question I ask myself, all right, if we do all of this, do we have a glimpse of what that kind of society would look like? What are those elements at play in such a society where all of us risen above all of our limitations, joining hands, striving towards this vision? And I came across this quotation from the Universal Laws of Justice, which I would like to read if that's all right. And I hope time allows me. Sorry. I'm just trying to look for the... Yes, this is the one. If I just highlight a few, components of that, they are committed to the prosperity of all, recognizing that the welfare of individuals rests in the welfare of society at large. They are focused on transcending differences, harmonizing perspectives, and promoting the use of consultation for making decisions. They emphasize qualities and attributes such as trustworthiness, cooperation, and forbearance that are building blocks of a stable social order. They champion rationality and science as essential for human progress. They advocate tolerance and understanding, and with the inherent oneness of humanity uppermost in their minds, they view everyone as a potential partner to collaborate with, and they strive to foster fellow feeling even among groups who may traditionally have been hostile to one another. They are conscious of how the forces of materialism are at work around them, and their eyes are wide open to the many injustices that persist in the world. Yet they are equally clear-sighted about the creative power of unity and humanity's capacity for altruism. And at last, they see the power that true religion possesses, and I'm so glad that we are here together, to transform hearts and overcome distrust. And so, with confidence in what the future holds, they labor to cultivate the conditions in which progress can occur. They share their beliefs liberally with others, remaining respectful of the freedom of conscience of every soul, and they never impose their own standards on anyone. And while they would not pretend to have discovered all the answers, they are clear about what they have learned and what they still need to learn. Their efforts advance to the altering rhythm of action, consultation, action, and reflection. Setbacks leave them unfazed. And when I read these writings, These are the motivating kind of factors which motivate me as an individual to engage on a much wider level in my civic duties and values. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you so much. I'm struck by the number 7 billion. If 7 billion of us just worked that followed what you said, what a world we would live in. So thank you so much. Thank you to all of our panelists and for just the tremendous perspectives that they shared with us. As I was reading the biographies, even the short bios, I was thinking, I'm really out of my league. I'm really punching above my weight, and I certainly feel that now after hearing from all of you. Thank you. Thank you so much. Before I ask perhaps a follow-up question or two, I'd like to open it up to our audience. And if there's a question you'd like to ask or put in the chat, we can ask it for you. Please do so. Please also understand that we are a 501c3 nonpartisan organization. If you can keep your question more nonpartisan, I would appreciate it, as would everyone else in the panel. But I'd like to give a chance for those of you who are here to ask any questions, because I'm sure those people who will be watching this on recording probably have a similar question. I'll open up that window. Please come off mute if you'd like, or write your question in the chat. Okay, well, I did use my teacher training for keeping that window open and giving some wait time. So I do have a couple of questions that we can ask for those of you who I can stay on. And of course, if you do find a question, please put it in the chat. My first question, and maybe we'll just call on a couple of you to answer this, and some of you did already, is again, especially those clergy leaders and those lay leaders who have really devoted their lives to their faith community, to interfaith community. We have a specific skill set, or we're constantly yearning to polish these skills of stewardship, which was used in a couple presentations, community care, our morality. How do we translate these skills into civic engagement? And more importantly, how do we inspire others to follow this lead? If there's anyone in the panel who'd like to answer that question.
I thought that was an interesting question, because I think the main thing is for us to use it everywhere we go. And in a real practical sense, there's been times where we've been on PTSA and or PTO, and we were one of the only, me and my wife, that is, only ones on the that understood how a nonprofit, how a board would work and things like that. I mean, some real basic things that we do in our faith life that we do in other places, but some people aren't exposed to anymore. Another example is we have an almost 18-year-old who's nonverbal autistic, and he has peers that sometimes have a hard time in public, and sometimes he does too, but I actually attribute that he does well because he's been dragged to church his whole life, and so he has an understanding of sitting still and women who don't tolerate that because he's seen as an equal, don't care that he has to take a break, but that he will be in the group. And that's just a small microcosm. I think that our faith group, and I see this working in interfaith, and so many people aren't engaged in that type of talking to people of different generations, talking about things deeper than just the sports team, and and things of that nature. And that's what we get. And so just to bring that consistently everywhere we go, I think, and unapologetically. So
I think it's important for us to remember as faith leaders, as trust in our civic organizations and civic institutions is plummeting. Clergy are still seen as trusted messengers, and we need to really embrace that mantle and make use of it. And too often, particularly on the more sort of liberal end of faith communities, we're afraid to speak about issues of justice because we're afraid that our congregants are going to not agree with us or are going to walk out or are going to be annoyed or going to accuse us of being too political. And we need to keep reminding people that it's not politics, it's justice that we're talking about. And all of our faiths, as we've heard today, are deeply committed to promoting justice. And we do it in the United States through the political process and through social organizing. As people who are very engaged today in doing grassroots organizing keep pointing out, the easiest way to get started with grassroots organizing is through organizations that already exist, and faith communities are among those organizations that are kind of a ready-made and in some ways a captive population that we can reach, and we need to take up that mantle of Reverend Martin Luther King saying the people that he was most afraid of weren't the people on the right who were standing in the way of justice, but people who believed in justice and weren't speaking out. So that's a challenge to all of us as faith leaders.
Bonnie, I'm really glad you quoted our most famous American Baptist, but also more importantly, you said exactly why I went to church 30 or so, almost 30 years ago, is because I saw a need for people to do good, and I saw a structure and a vacuum, in a sense of like, because there was no one in there. I was in my 20s at the time, and it was like, oh, I can actually get like things done to help people in my community with this structure that's already existed. And that's why, and then I ended up in seminary because they saw that I had that. But it is so true. There's like, that's one thing I try to tell young people: just show up. You can change it, over time. Like, come on, like, trust me. It's there for you, for the community. So, yeah.
Thanks, JC, and thank you, Rabbi Bani. Selena, thank you for joining the conversation. Welcome.
Thank you so much for this panel. Thanks to all the speakers. Thanks to everyone who has made it happen. These conversations are needed now more than ever before. So my question is, America turns 250 years old on July 4th, and I'd be interested in how each of our speakers are choosing to have their faith communities observe that. There's some rhetoric in the public square that characterizes America as more monolithic in how it was formed, but the reality is there were people of many faiths as well as free thinkers who are all part of the founding. So I'd be interested in hearing how you're navigating that. There's the America 250, there's the Freedom 250, and yes, we have Faith 250, and I know some of you are already engaged with that. So thank you so much.
So I will respond in part. I know the congregations here in the Milwaukee area have each been asked to identify particular service activities in the community that will benefit the lives of others. So in a couple of weeks, we will put together 250 packets of snacks and other stuff for children who are in special circumstances. And as a I should say nationwide church in this case, our leaders have designated the day before, or the Sunday following the 4th of July, the 5th of July, as a special day of fasting and prayer for our nation and for our political leaders to set aside their partisan differences and focus on the freedoms that are so important to us.
Thank you.
On the 5th of July is the...
Yes.
Okay, that's just good for interfaith person to know.
I don't know whether the answer is going to be, fulfilling what Selena had in mind. Two things, come to my mind. One is that our national body, National Spiritual Assembly of the Baha'is of the United States, has recently issued a statement, a common endeavor. And unfortunately, time is against us. Is a 4-page document, which, if the organizers allow that, I will gladly share that, and we can perhaps take a look at it. Is very much related to the question that you have asked. One of the things which this document highlights is the desperate need for conversations. What I have experienced in the last 3 years or so, I've had the blessing of traveling across the region and visiting many communities. And it's amazing, to see how much the people, at least the ones that I've met, they are yearning for conversations. They are yearning to come out of this, isolation that they are in. And it's amazing when you open up that, as if the love and fellowship and friendship, everything will flow. Therefore, I would say one of the things we can do is to promote conversations in our neighborhood, in our communities, and the wider society. Conversations which are based on love, conversations which are based on respect, conversations which are basically leading to find each other and to join hand on a mutual support to build a better society. It might sound very simplistic, but the way I've understood it, I don't know about you, we are desperate for conversations and being together.
Selima, thank you. That was a great question, which I think I'm going to allow us to segue into a little bit of a conclusion to this meeting, as it is 1:17. So, Selena, you asked a great question. How are we celebrating our nation's 250th birthday anniversary? And I have said in many of our voting rights, in many voting rights community groups, that we need to celebrate what we need to preserve and what we need to protect. And here at WIVIC, Wisconsin Faith Voices for Justice, we did join the Faith 250 project, which brings together interfaith groups, clergy cohorts, multi-faith gatherings, and eventually, soon enough, a celebration that brings us together. And Abbas, you're absolutely correct. People are yearning for conversation. They're yearning to be a part of something. And as I say at my Faith 250 meetings, that for all of us in attendance, we have over 20 people in attendance. Each of us knows at least 100 people who aren't coming to gatherings, who are afraid to join, who are feeling in despair of what is happening. So that is the job of all of us in the faith community, is to bring hope and faith and to bring it through action. So that is what WIVIC is doing, and we are. We're knee deep in the Faith 250, and I'm thrilled that this has been so successful. It's a program that I heard about back in September, and we are happy to join any other efforts that will bring communities together to celebrate the culture of democracy, because it is what has allowed many of us who would be considered minorities in this country. It is what has allowed us to flourish. It is also what is putting many of the minorities in our country at risk right now, as there are challenges to democracy right now. So great question. Thank you so much. And Jill, thank you so much for putting that information of Faith 250 on our WIVIC page. We are meeting in person in Milwaukee and in Appleton, and we will also be meeting online. It will be an incredible endeavor to do this online, but I have faith that our executive director, Matt, will be able to facilitate that without a problem. And we ask that people come together. We have a celebration in Milwaukee at the United Methodist Church of Whitefish Bay, and also in Appleton at Prince of Peace Lutheran congregation. And we will be examining the role of faith and art, and how faith and art together can help us promote, preserve, and celebrate and cherish democracy. We're super excited to be partnering with Nikki Johnson. Those of us in Wisconsin might know her through her project called Pillars of Democracy. And we are just putting the final touches on our promotions that will be put into place hopefully today, if not tomorrow, thanks to Jill and her tremendous vision for our promotions. So that's where I'm going to leave everyone in terms of Faith 250. We'll be providing all the links for Faith 250 in the email that goes out to everyone who registered. And please know that Faith 250 is open to anyone. It is not just open to those who registered for this webinar or anyone involved just in WIVIC or Wisconsin Faith Voices for Justice. Please bring friends, families, members, and people in your networks. And of course, Faithful Voices in a Critical Hour series will continue. Our next meeting is right after the 4th of July, and we'll be examining how communities celebrated the 4th of July. And I think because we didn't get to the question today, maybe how we can come together and join, even how we can overcome the differences that sometimes divide us, and how we can look to our differences as a way to be cherished and to cherish others and to come together as we work towards strengthening our democracy. So please be on the lookout for these next series. We're super excited. If you sign up for one, you've signed up for all. So thank you so much. Again, thank you so much to all of our panelists. I am so pleased and blessed to call many of you friends, and I follow in your footsteps. And again, feeling a little out of my league for sure. And thank you for always making it so that I feel that there's things that I need to do to keep up with all of you. So thank you for the work you do. Thank you to those of you who joined us today live, and everyone out there who will be watching this on recording. And we hope you've enjoyed it. And please reach out to anyone here at WIVIC or Wisconsin Faith Voices for Justice. We're happy to do a one-on-one meeting with you and enjoy getting to know all of our volunteers here at WIVIC. So it is 1:22. I'm going to send everyone off on their way. Enjoy this beautiful Wisconsin weather. We don't get to say that very often. Bonnie, I hope it's good out east for you as well. Thank you, everyone, for sharing today. Really appreciate it.